Joseph, from the pit to the palace, a story from Genesis 37 to 50. In the land of Canaan lived Jacob, the grandson of Abraham and the son of Isaac. Jacob was a man whose life had been full of struggle, deception, blessings, and encounters with God. In his old age, he had 12 sons who would become the fathers of the 12 tribes of Israel. But among those sons, one stood apart. His name was Joseph. Joseph was the first son born to Jacob's beloved wife, Rachel. The woman Jacob had worked 14 long years to marry. Rachel had died young, and the memory of her remained deeply planted in Jacob's heart. Because Joseph was her son, Jacob loved him with a tenderness that he did not show to the others. And one day Jacob made that love visible. He gave Joseph a magnificent coat of many colors, a robe rich and beautiful, a garment that symbolized honor and favor. But what Jacob gave in love planted bitterness in the hearts of Joseph's brothers. Every time they saw Joseph wearing that coat, it reminded them that their father loved and favored him. Their resentment grew quietly at first, but resentment has a way of growing into hatred if it is not controlled. Then Joseph began to dream. One night Joseph dreamed that he and his brothers were binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly Joseph's sheaf stood upright, and the sheaves of his brothers gathered around and bowed before it. Joseph told his brothers the dream. Their reaction was immediate. "Shalt thou indeed reign over us?" They were furious. Soon Joseph had another dream. This time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. When he told this dream, even Jacob was startled. "Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren bow ourselves to thee?" Jacob rebuked him, but deep inside he remembered the dream. But Joseph's brothers did not reflect on it. They hated him even more. Pause and think. Dreams are powerful things. When God places a destiny upon someone's life, that destiny often becomes visible long before it becomes reality. But those who hear the dream may not understand it, and sometimes they will fight against it. Joseph's dreams were not arrogance, they were prophecy. But prophecy often invites opposition before it brings fulfillment. Pause for a moment. If you are enjoying these wonderful Bible stories, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Subscription is absolutely free, and it will help the channel to grow and meet more people. Thanks for your support. Now back to the story. One day Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were tending flocks far from home near Shechem. Joseph traveled many miles searching for them until he finally found them in Dothan. But before he reached them, the brothers saw him approaching. The bright coat made him easy to recognize, and anger rose in their hearts. "Behold, this dreamer cometh," they said. Their bitterness had grown so strong that they plotted to kill him. "Let us slay him and say an evil beast devoured him," they said. But Reuben, the eldest brother, intervened. He persuaded them not to kill Joseph, but to throw him into a deep pit instead. Secretly, Reuben planned to rescue Joseph later. So when Joseph arrived, they seized him. They ripped the coat from his body, and they threw him into a pit. The pit was empty. There was no water. Joseph was trapped in darkness, while his brothers sat nearby and ate their meal as though nothing had happened. Then something unexpected appeared on the horizon, a caravan of Ishmaelite traders traveling to Egypt. Judah saw an opportunity. "What profit is it if we kill our brother?" he said. "Let us sell him." So they pulled Joseph from the pit and sold him for 20 pieces of silver. Joseph was carried away as a slave to Egypt. Meanwhile, the brothers dipped Joseph's coat in goat's blood and brought it to Jacob. When Jacob saw the coat, he believed his son had been killed. Jacob mourned deeply and refused to be comforted. Pause and reflect. Here is one of the hardest truths in life. Sometimes those who hurt us the most are the people closest to us. Joseph did not fall into the pit because of strangers. He fell into the pit because of his own brothers. Yet even here, something unseen was happening. God was guiding Joseph's destiny through circumstances no one understood. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, captain of Pharaoh's guard. Joseph was a slave, but something about him was different. He worked faithfully. He was disciplined. He was wise. And the Bible tells us something important. The Lord was with Joseph. Potiphar soon noticed that everything Joseph touched prospered. Before long, Joseph was placed in charge of the entire household. But Joseph's trials were not over. Potiphar's wife began to desire Joseph. She said, "Come lie with me." But Joseph refuses her and said, "You are my master's wife. My master has committed all he had into my hands. There is none greater in this house than I. He kept nothing back from me but thee, because you are his wife. Then how can I do such great wickedness and sin against God?" he said. Day after day, she persistently tempted him, but Joseph refused. One day she attempted to force him, while Joseph was alone in his private room doing his business. She grabs him by his garment and said, "Lie with me." But he refuses, and Joseph fled from her, leaving his garment behind. In anger, she accused him falsely. She called out unto the men of the house and said, "See, he had brought in an Hebrew to mock us." In those days, the Egyptians despised and looked down on the Hebrews. Hebrews were looked down upon because they were shepherds. A shepherd was considered a lowly, abominable, and disgusting profession. So the Hebrews lived separately from the Egyptians. Potiphar believed the accusation. Joseph was thrown into prison. Pause and think. Joseph did the right thing and still suffered for it. Many people believe doing right guarantees an easy life. But Joseph's story shows something deeper. Integrity may cost you temporarily, but in the end, integrity prepares you for greater responsibility. Even in prison, Joseph prospered. The prison keeper soon trusted him and placed him in charge of the other prisoners. One night, two prisoners, the Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, had troubling dreams. Joseph interpreted their dreams for them. According to each of their dreams, the events would take place in 3 days. The cupbearer would be restored back to his job in the palace of Pharaoh. The baker would die by being beheaded. 3 days later, the dreams came true. Before leaving, Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him, but the man forgot. Joseph remained in prison 2 more years. Then Pharaoh himself had a dream. 7 healthy cows were devoured by 7 thin cows. 7 full ears of grain were swallowed by 7 withered ears. This dream troubled Pharaoh very much, and that he could not rest. He called all his wise men of Egypt to interpret the dream. None of Egypt's wise men could explain it. Then the cupbearer remembered Joseph. The cupbearer humbly told Pharaoh about Joseph's ability to interpret dreams. The Pharaoh ordered that Joseph be brought before him. Joseph was brought before Pharaoh. He explained the dream. 7 years of abundance would come, then 7 years of devastating famine. Joseph advised Pharaoh to store food during the good years. Pharaoh was impressed with Joseph's interpretation and his wisdom, and in a single moment, Joseph's life changed. Pharaoh placed his ring on Joseph's hand and made him governor over Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old. The slave had become the ruler of the greatest kingdom in the region. Pause and think. Joseph's rise was not sudden. It was built through years of hidden preparation. The pit taught him humility. Slavery taught him responsibility. Prison taught him patience. God was preparing Joseph for leadership long before Joseph understood it. When the famine finally came, it spread across many lands, including Canaan. Jacob sent Joseph's brothers to Egypt to buy food. When they entered the governor's court, they bowed before him. The prophecy of Joseph's dreams was unfolding. Joseph looked more like an Egyptian than a Hebrew. They did not recognize him. Joseph recognized them immediately. He tested them. He wanted to see if they had changed their wicked ways. He accused them of being spies. He questioned them about their father and family. He demanded they bring their youngest brother Benjamin when they returned to purchase more grain. The brothers returned home troubled, remembering their sin against Joseph. "God is punishing us because of what we did to our brother," they said to each other. After much debate and arguments, Judah convinced his father Jacob to let Benjamin go to Egypt with them. They were running very low on grain and would starve if they didn't return to Egypt to buy more grain. They could not return to Egypt without Benjamin. Judah promised on his life he will bring Benjamin back home to his father. Eventually, they returned to Egypt with Benjamin. Joseph tested them one final time. He placed a silver cup in Benjamin's sack and accused him of theft. Benjamin faced slavery. Then Judah stepped forward and pleaded Joseph. "If we return back home without Benjamin, our father will die of sorrow, losing another son. Losing Benjamin would bring down his head with sorrow to the grave. Take me as a slave instead of Benjamin, I pray thee." Judah offered himself as a slave instead of Benjamin. The brothers who once sold Joseph had changed. Joseph could hold back no longer. He wept loudly and revealed himself. "I am Joseph, your brother." They were terrified, but Joseph forgave them. "Ye meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Joseph brought Jacob and the entire family to Egypt, where they lived safely during the famine. Jacob lived to see Joseph again, and Joseph became the man who saved not only Egypt, but his own family. Final reflection. Joseph's story teaches timeless truths. Betrayal cannot destroy God's purpose. Injustice cannot stop destiny. Faith can survive the pit, the prison, and every hardship in between. And sometimes the very people who once rejected you will one day stand before the destiny God prepared for you. The boy thrown into a pit became the man who saved nations, and the dreams that once caused hatred were fulfilled exactly as God had spoken. Amen.